The 1% do this before the world wakes, before the sun stretches across the sky. The 1% have already claimed victory in silence. They sit in stillness, shaping their thoughts, for they know that the mind commands the day. While others sleep, they visualize success with such clarity it becomes inevitable. They write, they plan, they affirm. A success is not stumbled upon, it is summoned. And by the time the world awakens, the 1% have already seized it. 1. They master their mindset through morning silence and reflection. 2. They visualize their goals with absolute clarity and emotion. 3. They plan their day with purpose, not by chance. 4. They feed their minds with wisdom before the noise begins. 5. They take decisive action while the world still sleeps. 1. Before the rest of the world stirs from its slumber, before the clatter of routine and the noise of distraction seep into the corners of daily life, the 1% understand a truth so profound, so powerful, that it alone can chart the course of destiny. They master their mindset through the sacred ritual of morning silence and reflection. It's not about luxury or luck or mere hustle, no, it's about intention. The focused, deliberate act of commanding your thoughts before they begin to command you. They rise while the stars still hang gently in the sky, not to scroll aimlessly or dive into chaos, but to meet themselves at the deepest level, to listen to the whispers of their own minds, to confront their fears, their ambitions, their deepest truths in the stillness where clarity lives. You see, most people wait for the world to wake up to give them direction. News headlines, notifications, obligations. They hand over the reins of their thoughts to everyone and everything but themselves. But the 1%, they take the wheel before anyone else gets a say. They sit in silence, not to escape life, but to tune into it. In that silence, something magical happens. Thoughts that usually hide behind the clutter of distraction rise to the surface. They begin to recognize patterns, habits of thinking, recurring doubts, hidden desires, and with awareness comes power. They reflect on their purpose, not in a vague or dreamy way, but with intention and detail. They ask, what kind of person am I becoming? And are my actions in harmony with my vision? And when the answer is no, they don't wait for fate to shift. They adjust their course right then and there. Reflection isn't about guilt or regret, it's about alignment. It's about recalibrating your mind every single morning so that your inner compass always points toward your true north. And in doing so, they strengthen the most critical muscle of all, the mind. While others wake up reacting, they wake up creating. While others dread the day ahead, they design it. They don't allow fear, negativity, or old habits to hijack their potential because they've already met those voices in the quiet and replaced them with clarity, conviction, and calm. Silence to them isn't empty, it's full of answers. They understand that the quality of their life depends on the quality of their thoughts, and so, mastering their mindset becomes not just a habit, but a daily act of self-respect. They don't wait for motivation, they generate it. They don't wait for circumstances to shift, they shift their perception first. They know that if they can master the first hour of their day, they can master the rest. They don't rush into emails or dive headfirst into external demands. They guard the first moments of their morning like gold. They journal, they meditate, they sit with their thoughts without distraction. They ask themselves hard questions, and they answer them honestly. They seek not just success, but alignment, peace, clarity, purpose. And while others may laugh at such rituals, calling them unnecessary or idealistic, the results speak louder than any opinion. Because a person who has faced themselves in the morning is far less likely to be thrown off by the world later on. A person who has centered their thoughts before breakfast is far more powerful than one who lets the world choose their mood. The 1% do not become extraordinary by chance. They design their inner world with the same precision that others reserve for business plans or workouts. They treat their mind as the first arena of battle, the first place where victory is earned or lost. That morning silence becomes their fortress, their laboratory, their sacred space where they shape their identity one thought at a time. And here's the kicker: it's not about perfection. There are no medals for waking up early. There are no awards for sitting in silence, but what they gain in those quiet minutes is something beyond measure: self-awareness, and self-awareness is the birthplace of transformation. Because when you become aware of what you're thinking, you can choose to think something better. You can rewrite the script that's playing in your head. You can discard the beliefs that no longer serve you and install new ones, stronger, sharper, more aligned with the life you actually want to live. That's what the 1% do. They don't let the past run the show. They don't let fear direct their choices. They don't let society define what's possible. They define it. They rewrite it. They imagine something bold, something rare, and then, through mindset mastery, they train their thoughts to match it. This doesn't happen by accident. This happens by discipline. By carving out space in the early hours to simply be, to observe, to listen to what the soul has been whispering under the noise of life. And slowly, day after day, the fog lifts. Decisions get easier. Confidence grows, patterns of self-sabotage dissolve, and what's left is a mind that doesn't panic under pressure but performs, a mind that doesn't chase after purpose but lives it, a mind that isn't at war with itself but finally at peace, fully directed toward a meaningful mission. It's in that silence that they prepare for the battles of the day, not with force, but with focus. They see the obstacles before they arise. They prime themselves to respond rather than react. They visualize the outcome before taking the first step. And all of this gives them an unfair advantage. While the rest of the world is playing catch-up, they're playing chess. While the masses stumble into the day already behind, they walk into it already ahead. Because they've already won the most important battle, the one in the mind, and the beauty of this truth is that it's available to anyone, but only a few will claim it. Only a few will commit to rising just a bit earlier. Only a few will sit with discomfort long enough to meet their truth. Only a few will value peace over distraction, clarity over chaos, but those few, the 1%, they will rise, they will lead, they will create. And they will live lives not of reaction but of design. It all begins in the morning, in the silence, in that sacred space where the future is shaped not by noise but by thought, not by chance but by choice. So, if you want to rise to the ranks of the uncommon, if you truly want to build a life that reflects your potential and not just your circumstances, then do what the 1% do. Meet yourself before the world meets you. Sit with your thoughts before the world sends you its agenda. Master your mindset before the day begins, because when you learn to lead your mind, you'll find that the rest of life starts to follow. It's not magic, it's not luck, it's mastery. And it starts every morning in silence before the world wakes up, too. Long before the world stretches and yawns its way into another day of ordinary routines and predictable patterns, the 1% have already carved out space within their minds for the extraordinary, and at the center of that practice lies a mental discipline so often overlooked yet so undeniably powerful. It is the unshakable habit of visualizing their goals with absolute clarity and deep emotion. For they know that what the mind can see with precision, the body can pursue with conviction, and the spirit can manifest into reality. And while the average person wakes up already caught in tangle of yesterday's worries or tomorrow's doubts, the 1% wake up with their minds laser, focused on a specific, vivid image of the future they are building, one so detailed, so rich in texture, so full of feeling that it becomes more than just a daydream. It becomes a command to the subconscious. It blueprint for action, a magnetic force pulling them forward even in the face of delay, difficulty, or detour, because they understand something most never realize. Success isn't created by chance, it's first created in the imagination, and not the kind of lazy, half-hearted wishing that so many mistake for dreaming, but the disciplined, daily ritual of sitting with one's desires and painting them in high definition, seeing the exact life they want to live, the home they will live in, the people they will impact, the achievements they will celebrate, and not just seeing these things vaguely or generally, but experiencing them in the theater of the mind with such sensory intensity that they can feel the warmth of the sun in that new life, smell the air, hear the sounds of victory, taste the fruits of success, and most importantly, feel the joy, the gratitude, the fulfillment if it's already theirs, because the 1% know that the mind, when impressed with clarity and charged with emotion, begins to shift everything in their favor. It sharpens awareness, activates intuition, opens doors that were once invisible, and builds resilience that defies logic. And so, when they visualize, they don't just see a number in a bank account or a trophy on a shelf. They see themselves becoming the person who deserves that reward. They focus not just on outcomes but on identity, not just on possessions but on transformation. They visualize not only what they want, but who they must become in order to receive it, and that's the difference, that's the secret that separates wishful thinkers from powerful creators, because while most dabble in vision once in a while, usually when life gives them a moment to breathe, the 1% make it non-negotiable. They schedule it like a meeting with destiny, and when they close their eyes, they are not escaping the world. They are creating a new one. They are planting seeds in the subconscious that, through repetition and belief, begin to bloom in their behavior, and while others are drifting through the day reacting to circumstances, they are already miles ahead because their minds have been trained to see opportunity, to spot synchronicity, to notice every clue and resource aligned with their vision. And if something doesn't match that vision, be it a habit, a distraction, a fear, they drop it without hesitation. Because the image in their mind is too clear to allow anything less. And here's the beautiful truth. The mind does not know the difference between what is vividly imagined and what is real, so every time they see their goals as done, every time they feel the emotion of already having what they desire, their physiology changes, their energy shifts, their confidence expands, and the universe begins to respond, not with magic or mystery, but with a momentum that feels almost inevitable, because the person who already believes in the outcome moves differently, speaks differently, acts with certainty instead of hesitation, and this changes everything, from the way they show up in rooms to the way they seize opportunities. And yet, despite the simplicity and power of visualization, so few ever use it, and even fewer use it correctly, because it requires more than imagining. It requires immersion, total emotional and sensory involvement. It requires commitment to repeat the process every single day, even when the goal still feels far away, especially when the evidence isn't yet there, because that's the test, that's the threshold where most give up and call it foolish. But the 1% double down. They visualize with even greater detail, even more passion, because they trust that what they feed their mind most often becomes what they manifest most consistently, and they know that the clearer the picture, the less room there is for doubt, fear, or distraction, so they keep that picture close. Some write it down, some create vision boards, some speak it aloud with intensity, but all of them do one thing in common. They see it before it's real, and they feel it as if it's already done, because they know that the future is not something they wait for, it is something they summon. And this clarity of vision doesn't just give them motivation, it gives them direction. It makes decision-making easier. It keeps them grounded when challenges come, because when you know exactly where you're going, the roadblocks don't deter you, they simply redirect you more intelligently. And every morning, as the sun rises and the world begins to stir, the 1% have already been at work, not with their hands, but with their minds, not building yet, but becoming, sculpting a future so specific, so meaningful, that the present moment becomes a stepping stone, not a stopping point, and they do this not once, not occasionally, but daily until the vision becomes their reality and their reality becomes an extension of their mental discipline, and the cycle continues: dream, believe, see, feel, act, repeat, until the gap between vision and experience disappears and what once lived only in the mind now stands tall in the physical world, undeniable, unshakable, because it was built from the inside out. And that's how they win. That's how they rise above the noise and the doubt and the average. They don't leave their future to chance. They build it every morning, one clear image at a time, one powerful emotion at a time. And if you truly want to join them, if you want to play the game at that level, then you must begin now, not later, not when the timing feels right, but now, by choosing to see your goal with fresh eyes, to give it detail, shape, emotion, life, to breathe it into being within your mind so thoroughly that your actions begin to align without force, and your belief begins to solidify without question. And when you do this enough, when your vision becomes so familiar that it feels like memory, then you will know, deep in your soul, that it's no longer a matter of if, but when, and then you will have discovered what the 1% already live by, that the mind is the first workshop of wealth, that thought is the birthplace of achievement, and that clarity, when mixed with emotion and repeated with faith, becomes unstoppable. 3. The 1% do not roll out of bed and let the day decide what happens next. They don't stumble into their hours hoping for productivity or waiting to see what the world throws at them, because they understand that time is the most precious, non-renewable asset they have, and how they use it, especially in the early moments of the day, determines everything about the results they create and the lives they ultimately lead. So while most of the population moves through the day reacting, answering emails, responding to messages, rushing to meetings, ticking off to-do lists they never questioned, the 1% begin their day with something far more powerful, a plan built with intention, because they know that drifting leads to distraction, and distraction is the enemy of destiny. So they anchor their day with purpose, mapping it out not just to stay busy but to stay aligned, not just to do more, but do what actually matters, and this level of clarity doesn't happen by accident. It's born from a conscious decision to take full ownership of one's time. So when they sit down in the early morning, before the world has made a single demand, they ask themselves not, "What do I have to do today?" but "What must I accomplish today to move one step closer to the life I envision?" And that single question changes everything, because it forces them to eliminate the trivial, to cut out the noise, to set fire to the tasks that look productive but lead nowhere, and focus instead on what truly moves the needle, whether it's a difficult decision, a creative breakthrough, a hard conversation, a bold step forward. And while others lose hours in busyness disguised as progress, the 1% guard their hours like gold, protecting their time from the invasion of the urgent and preserving it for the important, and they do it by design. They don't trust memory or mood or motivation to guide them. They use a written plan, one that's broken down hour by hour, block by block, often built the night before or in the early morning silence. And it's not just a calendar, it's a blueprint, a contract with themselves, a declaration of what they will build with the 24 hours they've been gifted, because to them, every hour wasted is potential abandoned, and they do not play loosely with potential. They do not let distractions run the show. They do not check their phones before checking in with their mission, because they know that every scroll, every interruption, every unplanned detour pulls them away from the life they're constructing. And so they plan with discipline and they execute with precision, knowing that a man or woman with a clear plan and strong will is more powerful than a crowd with vague wishes. And that's exactly why their lives compound over time, not Because they work harder, though many do, but because they work smarter, they stack small wins daily, and over weeks, months, and years, those small wins become massive achievements. Not because of luck or bursts of genius, but because of a relentless commitment to deliberate action, and that action is only possible through purposeful planning. And while most people float into their day, pulled in 10 directions by everything and everyone, the 1% act like captains of their own ship, charting the course with intention, steering it through chaos with focus, adjusting as needed but never giving up the wheel. And when unexpected problems arise, and they always do, they don't crumble because their foundation is strong, their priorities are clear, and their minds are trained to respond, not react, because planning doesn't eliminate challenges, but it gives them the power to face those challenges with clarity and calm. And in a world addicted to urgency, that clarity is rare, and rare becomes valuable. So their ability to plan makes them irreplaceable, their structure gives them freedom, and their purpose gives them fuel to keep going long after motivation fades. And here's something most people miss. Planning your day isn't about control, it's about alignment, about making sure your daily actions match your long-term vision, because success isn't found in grand moments but in the ordinary minutes, in how you use your mornings, in what you prioritize before lunch, in what you refuse to waste time on during the afternoon slump. And the 1% know that if they can win the morning, they can win the day, and if they win enough days, they win the week, the month, the year, and ultimately the life. And that's why their calendars aren't filled with fluff. Their time isn't owned by other people's agendas. They say no with confidence to things that don't serve their mission, and yes only to the few things that do. And this level of selectiveness may seem selfish to some, but it's not selfish. It's self-respect. It's strategic. It's the only way to create something great, and so they live by this truth. If it's not planned, it probably won't happen, and if it doesn't align, it doesn't belong, and that truth becomes a filter they apply to every decision, every commitment, every meeting, every hour, and with each filtered choice, their life becomes more focused, more powerful, more in flow, and suddenly, their results don't look like everyone else's. Not because they're luckier or more talented, but because their days were not left to randomness. Their lives weren't built by chance. They were built by choice, and that choice is renewed every morning when they sit down and decide who they're going to be today, what they're going to do today, and how that connects to where they're headed. And that decision, repeated day after day, creates momentum, and that momentum turns into results, and those results, fueled by intention, create life that inspires others, not because it looks easy, but because it's so clearly built with purpose. And anyone can do this. Anyone can rise and plan with the same intentionality, but so few do, because most would rather react than reflect. Most would rather stay busy than face the stillness of real priorities. But the 1% are different. They don't chase motion, they chase meaning. They don't fill their days with filler tasks. They build their days around foundational moves, and because of that, they make progress faster, they recover from setbacks quicker, and they never feel completely lost. Because the plan grounds them, and even when it changes as life sometimes demands, they adapt without drifting, because they know the destination, and with that destination clear, they can reroute and reframe and reattack with new energy. And it all starts with one question: what must I do today, on purpose, to create the future I desire? And the answer to that question becomes the architecture of their schedule, the heartbeat of their productivity, the pulse of their performance. And that's why they win, that's why they grow, that's why they build lives others admire but rarely understand, because while most are winging it, they are engineering it, while most are wishing they are working, deliberately, intentionally, purposefully, and it's not about perfection, it's about direction, and with every planned day, they become sharper, more focused, more grounded, more resilient, and ultimately more fulfilled, not just by what they do, but by who they become through the discipline of doing it with purpose. And if you truly desire to elevate your life to that level, then the invitation is clear. Stop leaving your days to chance, stop hoping it'll all fall into place, and start creating a life that unfolds by your design. Because the only difference between the life you dream about and the life the 1% live every day is this: they plan with purpose, and you can too, starting right now. Before the noise of the world has a chance to invade, before the emails scream for attention, before the notifications flood the mind with distraction, the 1% do something most overlook entirely. They feed their minds deliberately and consciously with thoughts of power, clarity, faith, ambition, discipline, and vision, because they know that if they don't choose what enters their mental garden, weeds will grow by default, and that's the reality most people live in. A mind hijacked by chaos, hijacked by urgency, hijacked by news cycles and gossip and digital noise that offers no real value. Just consumption without intention, just reaction without reflection, and so the 1% build a wall around their mind in those sacred early moments of the day, treating it like the most valuable real estate they own, and they guard it like a fortress, not out of fear but out of understanding that their thoughts are the architects of their future, that whatever they allow in will eventually come out in the way they speak, act, and live, so they don't leave that gate open. They don't wake up and check the world first. They check in with themselves. They turn inward before they turn outward. And instead of scrolling or reacting or comparing, they feed themselves with wisdom, with truth, with the kind of mental nutrients that strengthen resolve and nourish self-belief, whether it's a powerful book, a guiding principle, a set of affirmations, a line of scripture, a success journal, a meditation, a visualization, or a moment of stillness where they remind themselves who they are and what they're building, because they know that what they consume mentally in those first few minutes sets the tone for the next few hours, and what sets the tone often sets the trajectory, and what sets the trajectory shapes the outcome. And this is not superstition. It's neuroscience, it's psychology, it's performance science wrapped in ancient wisdom, and they live by it daily, not just on the good days, not just when things are easy, but especially when it's hard, because they understand that when life gets chaotic, that's when the mind must be calm, and you can't expect calm if you haven't been cultivating it. So they take the time, even if it's just 5 minutes, to pour strength into their thoughts before the world tries to pour in its confusion, because the world is noisy and messy and always shouting that you're not enough, not ready, not worthy, and if you don't anchor yourself early, those lies will start to sound like truth. And you'll spend your day trying to prove your value instead of expressing it, trying to catch up instead of lead, reacting instead of creating, and the 1% refuse to live like that because they've learned that mastering the outer game of success means first mastering the inner game of thought, and that means taking full control over what enters the mind, especially when it's most open and suggestible, right after waking. So instead of giving that time away to chaos, they give it to growth, and that could mean listening to a piece of timeless wisdom while the coffee brews, journaling a list of wins and goals while the sky is still dark, reviewing their life vision with closed eyes and an open heart, breathing in silence, speaking affirmations that feel like truth, reminding themselves that they were born for something greater than mediocrity, and choosing to believe that today, right now, is another gift to create, contribute, expand, because they know that repetition of the right thoughts creates belief, and Belief creates identity, and identity drives behavior, and behavior creates results. So it's never just about feeling good, it's about becoming someone who naturally does what others struggle to even start. And that transformation begins in the mind, in the silence before the storm, in those precious minutes when the rest of the world is still asleep or still unconscious, when there is still room to choose how the day will unfold, and once they've fed their minds, really fed it, not with fluff but with substance, then and only then do they enter the world, not as a servant to its noise, but as a commander of their focus. And that's why they walk differently, talk differently, lead differently, because they are coming from a place of fullness, of clarity, of alignment, and others feel it. Even if they can't explain it, they sense the energy of someone who isn't starving for validation because they've already validated themselves, someone who isn't drowning in doubt because they've already spoken truth into their soul, and it gives them an edge that cannot be bought, cannot be faked, cannot be borrowed. It must be built day by day, thought by thought, and the 1% build it like clockwork, turning their morning routine into a mental ritual, turning the first hour of the day into a sacred hour where their mind is fed before anyone else's agenda can reach them. And this mental nutrition pays dividends not just in motivation, but in momentum, in execution, in clarity. Under pressure, because when others are scrambling and foggy and overwhelmed, they are grounded and sharp and decisive. And that's the power of feeding the mind with intention. It builds resilience, not just in emotion, but in strategy, in focus, in adaptability, and the best part, it compounds, it multiplies, because the more you feed your mind the right input, the more your mind begins to crave it and reject the junk. And just like a body that's been trained to run instead of rust, a mind that's been trained to focus instead of fear becomes a powerful instrument of creation. And the 1% know that this is their true competitive advantage. Not money, not resources, not connections, but mindset. And mindset is not something you hope to have, it's something you cultivate. And so they treat their mind like a garden, not a garbage can, and they do this without fail. Because they know the cost of skipping it. They've seen what happens when you let the world in too soon. You lose control, you lose clarity, and soon you lose yourself, and that's not an option for those committed to greatness. So they protect that time like warriors, unapologetically, and if it means waking up earlier, they do it. If it means going to bed with a book instead of a screen, they do it. If it means saying no to the crowd so they can say yes to their mind, they do it. Because they are playing a different game, one that starts not with action, but with alignment, not with hustle, but with intention. And the mind, once trained this way, becomes their most loyal ally, showing them possibilities others miss, revealing insights others overlook, resisting distractions that derail others. And that's the kind of edge that no amount of talent or luck can replace. And you'll know when you've reached this place too, because you'll wake up no longer feeling like you're behind, but like you're in command, no longer lost in the opinions of others, but rooted in your own truth. And it will show up in how you lead, how you speak, how you handle difficulty, how you pursue your dreams, not as someone begging for permission, but as someone building their legacy from the inside out. And it all starts with one habit, one decision, to feed your mind before the world does, to decide what thoughts deserve space in your day, to choose what story you'll believe. And once you make that decision, truly make it, and back it up with consistent action, your entire life begins to shift. Not instantly, but inevitably. And you will become the kind of person others look at and say, there's something different about them. And they won't know it's because you took control of your mornings. They won't see the early hours of silence and strategy, but they'll feel the strength of someone who didn't let the noise win. And in that, you'll find freedom, you'll find power, and most of all, you'll find yourself. Live? Before the mind can operate at its full potential, before the wheels of strategy and creativity begin to spin, before clarity takes hold and confidence rises like the morning sun, the 1% do something primal, something physical, something far too many neglect. They move their bodies to awaken their minds, and not because they are fitness fanatics or obsessed with appearances, but because they have discovered a timeless truth, one that is both ancient and scientific, one that separates the reactive from the proactive, and it is this: the body is not just a vessel for thought, it is a trigger for thought, a portal to energy, and when you move it with intention, you signal to your mind that it's time to rise, time to fire up the engine of willpower, discipline, and direction. And so while the world still sleeps in the comfort of blankets and excuses, the top performers are already in motion, walking, stretching, lifting, running, pushing blood through veins, breath through lungs, and purpose through limbs, not as a chore, but as a ritual of readiness, because they know that motion creates emotion, and the right emotion powers the mind like a rocket, and the mistake most people make is assuming that energy comes before action, when in reality, action is what generates energy, and movement is what jumpstarts the flow of thought and clarity and creativity. And this is why you'll find the greatest entrepreneurs, leaders, artists, warriors, and visionaries sweating before they're scrolling, moving before they're multitasking, because they refuse to let their body sit idle while their destiny awaits activation, and they understand that the moment you get the body moving, the brain begins releasing its chemical symphony, dopamine, serotonin, endorphins, flooding the system with momentum and lighting up the mind like a power plant, and with each drop of sweat, each beat of the heart, they awaken not just muscles, but mental fortitude, because a moving body leads to a focused mind, and a focused mind can move mountains. So they stretch their limits each morning, even if it's for 10 minutes, even if it's simple, because it's not about duration. It's about declaration. It's about sending a message to the universe that they are alive, ready, committed, that they will not passively receive the day but will actively shape it. And as they move, their fears shrink, their doubts dissolve, and their sense of possibility expands, because nothing changes your state like movement, and once your state changes, your thoughts follow, and when your thoughts elevate, your choices elevate, and elevated choices lead to an elevated life, and so this one habit, seemingly small, becomes the foundation of a powerful mindset, and it becomes non-negotiable, a sacred appointment with self, mastery that no excuse is allowed to interrupt, because they have felt the difference between a mind that wakes in stillness and a mind that wakes in motion, and the latter always wins, always produces better decisions, clearer vision, stronger courage, and the 1% aren't moved by comfort. They are moved by conviction, and they know that if they don't choose discomfort on their own terms, life will choose it for them on terms far worse, and so they make that early morning sacrifice, not just to look good or stay fit, but to build grit, to cultivate discipline, to step into their highest self before the demands of the world begin to pull at them. And you might think it's about exercise, but it's not. It's about awakening the warrior within, and movement is the ritual that opens that door, whether it's a quiet walk under starlit skies, a fast-paced run with music fueling the soul, a stretch on the floor with eyes closed and heart wide open, or a full-blown workout that leaves muscles trembling and pride swelling, and as they sweat, they feel more than fatigue, they feel purpose, they feel fire, they feel the return of power that the world tries to steal each day with distractions, deadlines, and demands. And so this habit becomes armor, becomes oxygen, becomes the pulse of performance that carries them through decisions, negotiations, relationships, challenges, because a sluggish body breeds a sluggish mind, and they won't allow that to become their reality, not when they're chasing legacy, not when others are depending on their leadership, and this is why they protect this time fiercely, with the same seriousness they give to money, meetings, or missions, because they know this is the source of their mental wealth, their clarity bank, and when others say, "I don't have time to move," the 1% reply, "I don't have time not to," because they know what's at stake when the body is ignored. Energy fades, confidence slips, fog settles in, and opportunities are missed. So they move not just to feel good, but to stay sharp, to stay dangerous, to stay ahead, and they know that each day they honor this habit. They're casting votes for the person they want to become, and those votes compound, building a reputation with themselves that says, I follow through. I don't break promises to myself. I am strong, I am capable, I am ready. And the beautiful thing is, the body responds, the mind responds, life responds, because when you meet the day with movement, you're not just reacting to life. You're commanding it, and this spills into everything. Your posture improves, your mood lifts, your communication sharpens, your decisions carry more weight, your presence becomes undeniable, and all because you decided to move your body with purpose before the world distracted your mind with noise. And this is not just a habit, it's a statement. It says, I value my potential enough to activate it. It says, I will not wait for motivation, I will create it. And it's contagious because others feel it in your energy, your pace, your focus, and suddenly you become the one who inspires without trying, leads without speaking, dominates not by force, but by presence, and it all traces back to this choice, to move, to sweat, to act, to rise, and if ever there was a life hack that required no money, no privilege, no talent, only the will to begin, this is it, and yet most will overlook it. Dismiss it, because it's not glamorous, it's not easy, but the 1% live differently because they choose differently, and this choice to move their body before the world moves their mind is one of the deepest, most consistent, most transformative choices they make, because they know that momentum isn't found, it's made, and the moment you move your body, you start building it, brick by brick, step by step, rep by rep, breath by breath, and before long, you feel unstoppable, not because you've arrived, but because you've remembered who you are, and once that identity locks in, of someone who does hard things early, who chooses self-respect over self-sabotage, who prepares for life rather than waiting for it, then the rest of the day bends to your will, and you carry the energy of that early discipline into everything else you touch, and that, more than any tactic, more than any secret, is what separates the driven from the drifting, the fulfilled from the frustrated, the builders from the bystanders, and it can begin today, right now, with one decision to rise and move, not for results, but for identity, not for speed, but for strength, and that strength will echo throughout your entire day, reminding you in every choice you make that you are not here to wait. You are here to walk, to run, to act, to lead, to become.